Hey, welcome back to the NextGen podcast. I am really excited about this episode because we've got Will Larsen, our kids director, with us today. And we're in a new studio here at Mission Hills Church where we're going to be filming this from, and hopefully all the future episodes will come from this space as well. So you can tell it's Christmas time. This whole podcast is going to be around Christmas theme, especially for younger families, because Will is in the house and we're going to be talking about some of those things and how it relates. And by the time we're done with this podcast, some practical advice on how to help families think about Christmas and maybe some things that you could do around this. So this time of the year, we think about our families in general, or families that are churchgoers or believers. It can be the most wonderful time of the year, or it can be really stressful. Yeah. And there can be a lot of stressors. What comes to mind for you with what's stressful, maybe for your own family, but also the families of the church that we're on staff at, but I'm sure this is probably true across the board. All churches, all time, all young families. Sure. What comes to your mind around what stresses families out this time of the year?
Yeah, stressful for families. I don't know if this is a necessarily specific to Christmas, but I think it can be amplified maybe of just overschedule. All the things, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a couple kids in school, you're going to have Christmas programs or parties or get-togethers.
Yeah.
That's just your kids. Then you're going to have the normal everyday things. You're going to have their sports teams and their other activities they're a part of.
Right.
You're going to have your work things that come up that are maybe a little bit extra outside the normal aspects of your work.
Yeah.
It's unique with us working in ministry. It's a little bit different, right?
Right.
We're gearing up for Christmas services, Christmas Eve services, some outreach events, things like that. And so I know that doesn't maybe apply to everyone, but that's a little bit, probably unique, maybe more unique for our situation, just working in the church. But I think you throw all those things in like we talked about, a short season, right? From that, next month or whole month of December. I think it can be stressful just trying to keep it all straight and trying to go, how are we going to physically get our family here? How are we going to do nice Christmas photo and Christmas cards and the party and the work events and all those things. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I think that can cause some stress probably.
Yeah. It's, and where's the line between, hey, we're anticipating, we're excited, we're doing Christmas parties, we're doing all the things, gifts, white elephant gift exchanges, all this stuff, we've tipped over to the other side of, this is not fun anymore. This is too stressful.
It's almost like, hey,
suck the joy out of the season.
Like force ourselves to be, enjoy the anticipation, versus just just truly sitting and enjoying it. Yeah. Versus going, I'm stressed out from all these things. Well, now we can't actually enjoy the season. Right. And the season really, I can't enjoy the extra time with my family, maybe, right? Yep. Or be intentional with them.
Yep. Yeah, we were just talking about with our staff team, just trying to have an intentional, whether you're on staff or you're not on staff at a church at all, any family member, any follower of Jesus, frankly, to have some dedicated, specific time just for you and Jesus to kind of declutter the stress and just ponder in the moment of what Jesus did and why he came and Emmanuel with us and all that. But if we don't schedule that, if we aren't intentional about that, we're just gonna be in this heap of things, and then come January 1st, and it's like depression, which is normally when depression and stress and anxiety and mental health issues come into play post Christmas stuff, and so we don't want that to happen with families. Right. So I say build it in now to have an individual time, and if your kids are old enough, to have your kids do that as well. Yeah. To have some time where you just read the Christmas story or just ponder what Jesus did to come. And
well, like you shared this with our staff the other day, and you said that exact thing, and you kind of also added, but like without an agenda afterwards, without like, now I have to go do X, Y, and Z. Right. Just sit and rest and whatever that might be, worship music, read, go for a walk in creation, whatever that might look like. Right. It can look different for everyone. But not having to walk away with, and I have to go do X, Y, and Z now. Right.
Yeah, that's good. And listening to this in December, that might seem impossible to do. Right. How do I do that? You're already in the wave. You're already in the parties, the schedules, the things, and a lot of it's dictated by obviously young families' school schedules, and all those things. But I just think we have to intentionally build in rest
Yeah.
and just ponder this and not miss the moment, not miss what the reason Jesus came. And, you know, from a baby that grew up to die on a cross for the forgiveness of sins and rise from the grave. And otherwise we're going to miss that. I'd say the same thing around Easter time, but like you got to have Christmas before you get to Easter. And so to just ponder this moment. And even though I said it, I know I love all the elements, including Santa Claus. I love it all. You know, don't email me, but but I love all that stuff, just the anticipation of it all. And I can put it in the right boxes theologically and all those things. But just if you're not careful because of the stress, you can miss it all because you're caught up with the stress of all the things. Wrapping gifts and getting everything ready, and you've got a little bigger family than I do, and all the all the things that have to go with that. And then the finances, you know, and you're paying for stuff, and and that leans into families too.
Well, then you throw in there, I mean, say finances, but then say family dynamics, right? Maybe her relationship, like this, it's a whole different layer of added stress or hurt or things that might get more exposed maybe around that time of year, right? Time of year where families are seeing, families should be together, but maybe you experience a loss or a hurt relationship or something like that. It can probably, I know, absolutely adds another layer of just complexity and hurt and going through that season.
So, being the kids director at Mission Hills, and obviously being a dad and husband too, and all the things, what advice would you have for families tuning in to this podcast to think about Christmas and maybe some things that maybe they haven't thought of or prompts other things they might think of to sort of slow down, enjoy the moment, lean in with their families? What advice would you have for young families?
I was going to say this right when we were talking a second ago. I think the calendar app in our phones can be one of the most powerful tools. I think, and we're talking about busyness and things just kind of passing us by and being overwhelming. I think if you can get a hold of being proactive almost, right? And not getting to December 23rd, flying by the seat of your pants, and we just did all these events, and now we got to wrap presents, and now we got to go to church, and now we got to do this. If you can maybe look ahead and hey, let's be intentional about what are we going to do as a family? How are we going to be intentional with each other? What church service are we going to go to? Say that now, like plan that. Are we going to, maybe the tradition they have, right? Versus kind of, again, we'll get to it when we get to it. Like just plan it out almost. And not in a trying to be overwhelming. Hey, schedule it every second, every day, right? That would stress me out a little bit, But put some of those intentional things on the calendar. Go to that, sit down with your family, and go, hey, what are the things we don't want to miss, right? We don't want to get through Christmas and go, we didn't get a chance to sit down and have a meal together around Christmas time. We didn't get a chance to go see Christmas lights. We didn't get a chance to even set our tree up, maybe, right? Whatever it might be. Maybe be proactive and intentional to go, hey, what are some of the key things for our family that we don't want to miss, right? Because you said it goes fast, right? It's a whirlwind with family. Whether you have one kid, 5 kids, however many you have, it goes really fast. And so that would just be a small piece of practical advice of go, put it in your calendar, schedule it. Hey, what's your date night with your spouse? Maybe,
that's
right?
good.
I think got to have some intentional time with your spouse, right? Don't go a month and a half with like, wait, have we sat down together and just enjoyed each other's company and had dinner together? And so that might be a practical thing. And
I love that. And in general, it's not very specific, but it's in general. But we talk about this a lot too, especially around child dedications and things like that at Mission Hills Church. Is more is caught than taught, and so parents. Guardians, model to your kids what you're doing this Christmas season, and they might catch you in the act of reading the Christmas story all on your own to be alone. I know you have a story about that with your kids, but if you don't model it to them and show them you can slow down and not be hectic and stressed out, and why are mom and dad so stressed out about the finances, although they might be tight or whatever around this time. But if you're stressed about the whole thing, they're going to feel that, see it, experience it, and it's not going to be a very celebratory time of the year for them. And so I just encourage you, parents, if you are heading into this season, to have a regular rhythm where you're spending time with the Lord, but also a regular rhythm where you're modeling to your kids what they ought, you want them to be too.
We just talked a lot about traditions, right?
Right.
And that's how I think that's how traditions carry on.
Yep.
Our kids either experienced it or saw that.
Yep.
And so if your tradition is decorating a house together as a family,
Right.
If I didn't involve my kids in that,
Yep.
they may either not care or not know what that's like or not experience.
Yep.
It's a kind of a fun time that we get to blast Christmas music, set
Right.
Christmas decor up, and they might not pass it on to their kids, right? And so on and so on. So I don't think that's where traditions maybe even, I don't know,
It's a good thing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's a great thing.
Yeah, and you may not like the traditions that you grew up with or whatever.
Right.
You can change that. But I would even speak to parents today who maybe you're thinking we don't have a lot of traditions, or they've been these one-off things each year. I would encourage you to start something this year and continue it on. It's never too late to start something new and to start to do that. And
also, I was just going to add, don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
It doesn't have to
Keep
be
it
this
simple.
every single day we do this big thing, tradition, right? If you do one thing, one tradition, maybe one special thing to your family, I think that's great. Like I think sometimes we can get caught in our own heads of overcomplicating those things.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Do you have any tools that you'd recommend, or resources, podcasts, websites that we suggest to Mission Hills families, but any families that are walking this out?
Yeah. This will not to do a shameless plug. Well, kind of to do a shameless plug.
Sure.
So one of the things we created this year for families here at Mission Hills was a family devotional Advent guide.
Yeah.
That we're going to be releasing here just in actually a few weeks.
Great.
So right after Thanksgiving, we are going to be rolling this out to families. It'll be a printed handout booklet, but it'll also be available on our website.
Yeah.
Under resources, and so really excited about that. I think devotionals can be really powerful. Like you talked about being in the Word and just spending time.
Right.
There's another dynamic, though, when you do that, I think, with your kids, and when you can maybe bring them into that a little bit and wrestle through some questions, right? Read through this Christmas story, and then what are some questions? Why is it special? What's the meaning of this? Yeah. I think when you can include kids in that, that's really, it can unlock another layer and some great conversations. And so I'm really excited about that. We'll be releasing here at Mission Hills to our families. Along with it, so not just a devotional portion for families. There's 4 weeks of devotions. Again, not to overcomplicate things, but we provide some options for activities for families to do. And so some of it, maybe even the things we even talked about, go see Christmas lights.
That's great.
Write a Christmas card to your mailman, to your garbage person.
Oh, that's great.
So we include some suggestions for families of things you can actually do, right? Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but something might sound like a great idea, but if you don't have maybe the prompting or idea to do that, it can blow by pretty quickly.
Right.
And so we provided basically every day of December just an idea of something you can do if you want as a family. Right. So I'm really excited about that resource to get out to families' hands. Anyone can use that. It's not just for Mission Hills families, but I'm excited to roll that out here pretty soon. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. That's good. And I want to speak to and lean in with the family that might be listening in. That you might be thinking, I'm not very spiritual. I'm not very religious. Sure. Maybe you don't go to church as often as you think you should, or that kind of thing. Is, again, you can start these traditions this year, and even if it's reading Luke chapter 2, this Christmas story, or whatever it is, that you might go, well, I'm not very spiritual or religious, whatever you might say. And I would just encourage you to just start. Just do something. Take a tangible action step. It could turn into a tradition for next year, because your kids could say, hey, are we going to write the letter to the mailman this year? Sure. Are we going to do read the Christmas story? And then they start to catch on. And then that might be a legacy lever where they continue it on with their families one day. Right. Or grab hold of the things you did like from your family of origin and carry them through all the way with your family. But even if you haven't been doing those things, I just encourage you to start. Do something. Right. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I love Charlie Brown Christmas. And I love that because everyone catches the scene of Linus reading the Christmas story. Sure. And Charles Schultz obviously was a believer, and he weaved that into the story, and he, wanted the gospel of Jesus to be shared through that, which is amazing. Because every year when I was growing up, I know I'm really old, Will, but you looked at a thing called a TV guide to know.
What?
Do you know what that is?
I do.
To know what time things were going to be on TV, and
sure.
so you literally had a little magazine that you flipped through to see when's Jeopardy on, when's Wheel of Fortune, But around Christmas time, you look to see, because this is before DVDs, this is before those things. When was Christmas? When are the Christmas movies going to be on? When was Charlie Brown Christmas, which is normally a half an hour, and then Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and when was the Grinch, the original Grinch cartoon, going to be on, and all these things. And if you missed it, you missed it. It wasn't getting replayed during Christmas.
Right.
Now we have the DVD. Now we can watch it whenever we want to, multiple times,
over and over.
But we wanted to see Charlie Brown Christmas and that famous scene from Linus reading the story. And so I thought just kind of conclude this podcast is just to read that story.
Yeah.
And
love to.
You could read the first part and I'll read the second part.
Absolutely.
And we're in Luke chapter 2, starting in verse 1 all the way to verse 20. And again, this is something you could start with your family and a tradition you could start. I feel like we're like Santa Claus or something. Yeah, I don't know, sitting around the campfire, the fireplace, reading the Christmas story. But what a great way to sort of end this podcast around Christmas and be able to kickstart families into a great season, hopefully. Yeah. So why don't you start in Luke chapter 2?
Yeah, sounds great. In those days, Caesar Augustus's decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them.
And there were shepherds living out in their fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be to all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior will be born to you. He is Christ, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger." And suddenly a great cloud of heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men in whom his favor rests." When the angels had left them and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby, who was lying in a manger. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child, and all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had heard and seen, which were just as they had been told. There's so much to say about this passage that I'm going to hold back on and not share, but one point that I just want to point out that I hope is true for you listening in on this podcast, families or anyone else, is that I love that the shepherds were the first ones to go share the gospel. They saw this. Can you imagine a company of angels showing up saying these things, but then they're the ones that returned to be able to share this good news that the Savior, the Messiah, Jesus, has been born, and they glorified and praised and worshiped. And I hope this during the season that families can have the time, push pause, and to worship and take it all in and not be stressed out by all the things happening around this season. any other thoughts you have as we conclude this podcast?
No, you know what, Jeff? The only thing I was going to mention, you mentioned families, maybe they don't have a tradition, right? We talked a lot about that. But maybe this is the year to start one, or maybe this is the year where they're just looking for something. They're looking for hope. They're looking for something to bring their family together. I just want to share that we're doing the family movie night here at Mission Hills. And so, again, I know it's specific to our church, but I think that's a great opportunity around movies. Right? We talk a lot about movies and traditions, but to get your family together, right? Carve out time. It's going to be on Friday, December 13th here at the Littleton campus, and I think that can be a great time just to get your family. Maybe invite that neighbor who's been wanting to invite to church, maybe, and invite that coworker, their family, whoever that might be in their life, to come here, and maybe that would be a new tradition for their families. And
you can go check out all that information at missionhills.org and the times and when to come, and it's a great time. Hot cocoa, the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
To watch a couple movies just to get in the spirit of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited for Christmas coming up. And,
me too. Yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast,
Well,
Will.
thank you for having me.
Thanks for the dialogue, conversation.
Appreciate it.
I learned a lot about you.
Likewise.
We work together.
We
here.
do.
But it's so great, and anticipating Christmas. Love this time of the year. Don't miss it, everybody. Keep leaning in to be intentional, as you mentioned, with your calendar and all those things, to make sure this is a great season and you don't end up at the other side totally stressed out. But don't miss the reason for the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus. And we're so grateful that Emmanuel came to be with us and to be able to save us. And so thanks again for tuning in to this podcast. We're so glad that you did. And be sure to check it out in the coming year as we talk about the new year and what's happening there as well. So thanks again, everybody, for coming and checking out the NextGen podcast. This podcast is hosted by me, Jeff Baxter, along with special guests who are experts in the industry. We're mixed and edited by Leopard Productions. Our senior producer is Colin McFarland. Our video director is Zach Anderson, and our digital and SEO specialist is Maddie Brower. The NextGen podcast is part of a Mission Hills podcast network here at Littleton, Colorado. Thanks for listening.